Hiya, HonestDiscussioner here. This is a video response to the always awesome, the perpetually energetic, and the currently red-headed healthy addict, also known as Ashley. Was it sexist to point out she has red hair now? No, it was hairist. See, I actually have a conscious bias in favor of redheads, and I am unapologetic about that fact. So while everyone's sexist, and I'm no exception to that rule, in this case, I was being hairist, and unapologetically so. In case you haven't figured it out by now, the topic of this video is going to be sexism, or as Ashley pointed out in her video, benevolent sexism. Now I really like the first description Ashley uses in her video of benevolent sexism, which is basically a guy coming up to a woman who's doing the dishes and saying, "Oh, look at your soft, dainty female hands, you shouldn't be doing the dishes, let me, the big man, do it." And yes, I agree, it's a little bit ironic that it's the man telling the woman she's not supposed to do dishes, but still, I'd agree. This is sexism, and I don't think it's right. However, what I do take issue with is the science that she posed in order to back up her point. Was the science she cited actually showing benevolent sexism? Not necessarily. Well, what was the study? Imagine, if you will, that you're a woman. Maybe you already are a woman and you don't need to imagine it. But the part you probably will need to imagine is that you've agreed to take part in a scientific study. But when you get there, you don't know that the study has already started. What happens is that you'll be sitting in a room with two RAs, research assistants, one male, one female. And the supervising researcher will come in and ask them to bring some of the files that are on the desk. Now there's two possible scenarios here. The first one is the non-sexist one, in which they both grab the files together and they both walk out of the room. Now number two is the benevolently sexist act, and that is when they both go to pick up the files, but the man stops the woman and says, "No, I'll take the files for you, don't worry about it." So was this benevolent sexism? Again, I have to argue no, or at least not necessarily. What I'm going to be saying here is going to be mirroring a lot of what Coughlin had to say in his response to Ashley. He sort of beat me to the punch. Damn you, Coughlin! Thankfully, though, he didn't cover everything that I wanted to say. He pointed out two things. Number one, it's not sexist if you're doing something nice to help out a fellow human being because they're a fellow human being and not because they're a woman. And two, if you complain about men being helpful as sexist, you're giving ammunition to misogynists, to real misogynists. Now, while I agree with most of what Coughlin says, he has a hard time even grasping the concept of benevolent sexism at all and sort of doesn't believe in it. Oh, sure, he believes that people in other countries that try to redefine rape as almost non-existent, that's wrong. But how can benevolence be sexist? This is the part where I think he goes a wee bit too far. If you need a good example, we need look no further than the military. Ladies don't exactly have it easy, especially around the world, when trying to serve in the military. Now sure, some of this is completely hostile towards women. Men are threatened by this. They feel it's their territory and women are coming in on it and they're not happy about it. But there's also a different part of that which says that women are weak and need to be protected from the horrors of war, and that men should be protecting them, and that it's not their role because of some inherent weakness, and that they're only looking out for their best interests. That's benevolent sexism. Or at the very least, it's a mixture of benevolent and hostile sexism, but the benevolence is still there, and it's still just as wrong as the hostile sexism, if it's maybe not as harsh. Now that example, Coughlin, I'm pretty sure you'll agree with me on. But his main point is still very valid. You can't generalize all benevolent acts as sexism if it's a man doing it to a woman. Case in point, the thing the study came up with was that these benevolent acts of sexism caused women to increase their body self-surveillance. Yes, that's it. Now, what is body self-surveillance? I'm not exactly sure. The topic is almost overly researched in that anything I found on it was part of a whole gigantic book on it. I found no direct definition. I did find something that alluded to the idea of women checking their makeup 12 times a day and making sure they were always looking their absolute best. I imagine more specifically it's the idea of someone consciously assessing their physical appearance and tying it to their self-worth, and also possibly being more critical than reality would actually warrant of their appearance. I can go with either definition, though. Now, I understand this could be rather unhealthy. I'm especially troubled by the fact that I know so many women who find themselves way less attractive than they actually are. And I'm not just going off of my perceptions, but basically male consensus on them. And they tie it to their self-confidence, and that's not cool. Women are certainly more than their bodies. No argument there. Now, I'm not doubting the actual findings of the research. I'm sure that the women that viewed these acts, where the man helped out the woman, did experience more body self-surveillance. Not questioning that. What I am questioning is the idea, or the assumption, that it was because these acts were sexist that caused these women to increase their body self-surveillance. As a good little skeptic, I have to try to consider as many possible alternatives as possible, and there's good reason, which I'll go over later, why this should be done. But a possible alternative explanation is, what if she just liked the male RA? Like it or not, women are hardwired, or at least some women are hardwired, to be attracted to good providers. Now, am I being sexist here? On the contrary, I think if you jump to that conclusion, then you're really the one that's actually being sexist, at least in this case. You see, I never said that women are hardwired because they are weaker or need a man to provide for them in order to survive. What I do believe is that women are looking for good partners, and a good partner is someone that's not just going to be able to provide for them, but more so the children. Male, female, transgendered, it doesn't matter who you are or how awesome you are, the greatest person on the planet is not going to be as effective a parent as two competent partners, be they two males, two females, or one of each. So maybe witnessing an attractive man performing a helpful service to another woman sort of gave off some subconscious attraction thingy. Thingy here being a scientific term. So am I saying we should throw out the study? Absolutely not. As I pointed out with my army example, benevolent sexism is a problem. But as I also said, a good skeptic has to analyze every possible conclusion. And as Coughlin pointed out, this could be giving ammunition to misogynists. Now, how he said it is that if women are just complaining about helpful men now, it sort of puts all of the real things, or in his opinion, the real problems, out of perspective. But if you're not looking at all of the other options and automatically attributing this body self-surveillance to sexism, then you could be discounted as merely biased and just looking for an excuse to call sexism. I certainly don't think women are actively trying to find excuses to call sexism. But whether you're actually trying to or not, calling sexism, and it might not actually be there, does give them ammunition. Now maybe it actually is there, but if you don't consider all of the options, you might be discounted as biased. Now it could be the study did take into account other possible explanations. Even with access to ProQuest, I couldn't find the full text of the study. If that's the case, then, well, my point is officially withdrawn. But even if the study is right, this puts guys in a tough spot. For better or worse, women do find helpful men attractive. If guys like me who care about women as more than simply sex objects and actually appreciate them as human beings stop doing nice things for women because it could be considered mistreating them, we're going to lose out to all the guys who don't care about that and who just look at women as sex objects and sandwich makers. See, the main gist Ashley has going for her, I actually think is correct. Benevolent sexism is a problem. You shouldn't help a woman out simply because she's a woman, but because that she's a human being. And you'd want to do the same thing for a man. But it's going to be difficult, if not impossible, to parse through these individual motivating factors for why someone would do something nice, whether it be for because they're a woman or because they're a human being. Whether because you think they're too weak or because you just want to make their life easier because you care about them as individuals. So wouldn't it be better to focus on the root of the problem? Shouldn't we be combating the perception of women as inherently worse than men at anything, rather than treating the symptoms of men feeling they need to protect these frail women? See, if we combat the perception of them as frail or needing protection, then there won't be any drive to treat them as that, and therefore any benevolent act will be just that, a benevolent act not based in sexism. I think Ashley, Coughlin, and I are all on the same boat, and we're all really headed in the same direction. I'm just offering a mild course correction to get us to our destination faster. That's about it. Have a nice day. HonestDiscussioner, out.